All right. What is up, everybody? My name is Jonathan. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Progression in Progress podcast, and I am here today to disprove my own argument. So we just released episode 21 of the podcast, and in that episode, Sam and I kind of discuss, you know, is productivity worth it? There's sacrifices when it comes to productivity, and are those sacrifices worth it? That's kind of what we discussed on the episode. If you haven't checked it out, I would highly encourage you to go check it out. There will be a link in the description of this video to go check it out. But the reason I'm making this video is because at the end of the video, I used some logic. I talked about some economics, and I used some logic to kind of prove. I mean, if it was a really good proof, we wouldn't be here today talking about disproving my own argument. But I just wanted to set the record straight. And I realized, right after I recorded the episode, Sam and I were talking about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if what I said, like the message of what I said was completely wrong, but the way that I proved it using econ definitely didn't hold up when you think about it some more. So I'm here today to kind of set things straight. I really don't think this is a huge deal, but I'd rather just, this is fun for me to talk about stuff like this, and might as well set the record straight, clear any confusion. So my argument that I made in the podcast, right, the argument in question was based off this graph. Oh, shoot. It's not, the graph's on the next one. Sorry. The argument was productivity is worth it. Sorry. Okay, hold on. So my argument was productivity is worth it. And I proved it using this graph, right? Not proved it. Obviously, the proof didn't work because, we're here disproving my own argument. But this is kind of what let me walk you through my logic, right? So at the top, you got the United States and their GDP, which is a good measure, or productivity heavily factors into GDP. Your productivity heavily factors into GDP. I think it's the main thing that factors into GDP. Now, right, there's a ton of different other things that factor into productivity, but in the graph I'm about to show, productivity is quite crucial to GDP. So GDP is a good measure of productivity. And this was talking about, this was just saying, having a high GDP in the chapter is talking about, GDP is not the measure of everything, but it does a really decent job of measuring a lot of things that are important. There's a lot of correlation with high GDP and things that we associate with being good. For example, life expectancy is much higher in higher GDP countries. Average year of schooling, that's a pretty decent thing. Life satisfaction, now that's a big one right here. Now, yeah, that's a big one right here. So I was kind of using this graph to say, okay, look at this. Look, GDP is linked to productivity, and we're talking about productivity. Therefore, yes, it is worth it to be productive. Because look at this, all these productive countries here have a higher overall life satisfaction and have better indicators of what might make a good life, even though GDP and these statistics right here can't measure everything. They just generally are leading towards, a better life, right? If you look at the countries at the bottom, right? If you look at the countries at the bottom, their efficiency, their productivity isn't quite the same as these top tier countries when it comes to GDP. So my argument, right, is that yes, productivity is worth it. But okay, here's the error of my ways. Especially, I feel dumb that I made this error. I was just very excited to share some econ stuff with everyone, but it did not work out. So the error of my ways is I talked about productivity in just the normal everyday layman's term of productivity, right? So that's how we talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, right? That's how we talked about things at the beginning of the podcast, like productivity as in hard work, productivity as in efficiency, things that you have a lot of control over, which is a big theme on progression and progress, right? But this is my mistake right here. So there's a difference between productivity and economic productivity. And, economic productivity, right? This definition that I stole from my textbook right here, the quantity of goods and services produced from each unit of labor input. So this is what, when it's GDP, right? Which is which is heavily based on productivity. And then we're measuring GDP right here. This is based on the quantity of each good and service. Sorry, the quantity of goods and service produced from each unit of labor input. And that really doesn't vibe with the whole progression of progress mindset, and especially the point that I was trying to make using this graph back here, right? This data table. So the reason this doesn't hold up is because of this graph. And I was trying on that podcast, I was kind of realizing this as I was explaining it. And I wanted to kind of talk about, going a little bit in depth, but I couldn't find the graph that I wanted to show you next. And when the episode was getting a little long, so here I am explaining it. So this graph right here kind of disproves my theory that, okay, so if you look, I don't know if you can see my mouse right here. Maybe if I get like a little pointer over here, if I get a laser pointer, can you guys see that? Okay, yeah. So, right, so we got the United States right here, has the highest GDP on that chart. It looks like Sweden. Oh, this is GDP per capita. Sorry. Okay, yeah. United States got the largest GDP, but GDP per capita, right? So we got all these countries up here that you would, consider first world countries. Luxembourg, dude, I always see like Luxembourg and like all these stats, like they are always balling out of their mind when it comes to stats like this. And like in the Guinness Book of World Records, I remember when I was a kid and read about Luxembourg, but like I've never heard of anyone ever being from Luxembourg or anything like that. So we got to learn more about Luxembourg over here. But the reason that this graph right here disproves what I was saying is because, when we're talking on progression and progress and we're talking about productivity, especially in that episode and in general, we're talking about hard work. We're talking about putting your shoulder to the wheel. We're talking about grinding things out. We're talking about getting things done, right? And when you get into econ, it's really, how much you're inputting and what you're putting out, right? And in that sense, obviously in terms of econ, all this stuff holds up. The United States is very efficient, very productive. Hong Kong, Singapore, Luxembourg, these countries, Netherlands are very efficient. But what disproves my argument is you got these countries over here, right? So let's take Cambodia, the furthest extreme, for example. Cambodia has a very low GDP per capita, very, very extremely low. I don't think we really, at least in the United States, can grasp the difference here. And it's obviously every individual is different, but we're talking averages here. It's like what, $3,000, $2,500, maybe less than that, $2,500 per person per. Isn't that crazy? That's nuts. But what I'm talking about here is, look, this is compared to working hours. So the people in Cambodia are on that grind. They're working 2,400 hours a week. Let's pull out the calculator. Let's pull out the trusty financial calculator right here, and let's do some math. So 24,000 hours divided by, let's see, this is per week, right? So 24,000 hours per, wait. Oh, annual working hours. This is not weekly. Okay. That makes a lot more sense. Okay. 52, you divide it by 52. So that's 46 hours a week. Now that's not crazy, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people, Sam works more than 46 hours a week, right? But why this disproves my argument is because we're talking about being on the grind. When we're talking on progression progress, we're talking about hard work. And the people in Cambodia are definitely on the grind. They're definitely working hard, but the productivity in terms of economic sense is not there. So that's why, I don't know, I wanted to make this, because my argument really isn't sound if it's economic productivity, right? It all makes sense. But when we were talking in the podcast, we were talking about productivity, hard work, and efficiency. So I don't want to be dissing anyone in Cambodia or Bangladesh or Myanmar. Sorry, I can't say that. Nigeria. I don't want to be dissing anyone in there, because I know they're on the grind. I know they're working hard, and that's what's important to the progression and progress mindset. So I just wanted to clear that up. And, here's a few things, a few reasons why a country might be more productive than the other. Just why the difference is there, even though they're on the grind, and we're working less than us, and Netherlands even is working less than us, right? But there's all these reasons. So conclusion, wrap this up. This is getting too long. The details of what I said were wrong. There's a big difference between economic productivity and a big difference between how maybe the average person, and definitely how we were using productivity in that conversation. But even though the way I proved it was wrong, it was not correct. It doesn't hold up when under scrutiny. I still think the message that productivity being worth it, ignoring my failed proof, I still believe that productivity is worth it. We can definitely, I guess we can see from, no, never mind. I'm going to, if I keep trying to, I've already disproven my thing. So I'm not even going to try to go back and, argue for it, because I've disproven it. Disproven, right? That's the word, disproven. Okay. So that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for listening. This really isn't that big of a deal, but I thought I would just clear things up just for the heck of it. So thank you guys for listening to this little mini video. Let me know what you guys think. Give me some feedback. Always looking for some feedback. Shout out to my man, Sam, for being a great co-host of the show. If you guys haven't listened to the episode, if you guys for some reason are here just because of YouTube and you haven't listened to the show, there will be an episode, it's here on YouTube, or if you want to just listen to the audio version, there will be a link down in the description. So thank you guys. Make sure to subscribe, like this video. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys around. Bye.